Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm J.D. Davidson. It's not just Republicans who are attacking Democrats this election season. The Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein also believes Democrats are on the wrong side of some key issues. Joining us today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor for the Center Square. Ben, she thinks those issues could be costly for President Joe Biden in Wisconsin. A critical swing state, Biden won by only a little more than 20,000 votes in 2022.
Yeah, look, when you think of the Green Party, you generally think of environmental issues, right? You think of clean energy, you think of recycling, you think of spotted owls and the three-toed salamander. But as Jill Stein is looking at the 2024 election, she's counting on the opposition to the war between Israel and Hamas as being a net gain when it comes to votes for the Green Party. She was on one of the public access shows, all the TV stations in Madison, Milwaukee. They have their own sort of Sunday talk show, and this one's UpFront over on Channel 12 here in Milwaukee. And Stein said that there are an awful lot of people who are upset with the Democratic Party in the stance that it is taking in support of Israel. As she said, pro-war, pro-corporatist candidates. And Stein sees an opportunity to pick up, as she put it, as much as 5% of the vote in the state of Wisconsin. And just like you said, JD, that this is a state that Joe Biden won 4 years ago by about 21,000 votes. So if Jill Stein can take 5%, that could impact this. But remember, again, like so much here in Wisconsin, you got to look back to the past couple of elections. And it was in 2016 when Stein was on the ballot here in Wisconsin that Hillary Clinton blamed her for essentially spoiling the race, stealing Wisconsin from the Democrats. And Stein said she's not going to accept that label this time around. She said if Democrats falter, if voters who used to vote Democrat turn to the Green Party, well, then the Democrats have no one but themselves to blame.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. 5% of Democratic vote in California doesn't matter. 5% of Democratic vote in Alabama doesn't matter. There may not be a state where 5% matters more one way or the other than Wisconsin.
Yeah, and this is the thing. In 2020, the Green Party was kept off the ballot. There was a issue with the Green Party's vice presidential candidate who had changed addresses halfway through her nominating petitions. And so the first half had the old address, the second half had the current address, and the Wisconsin Elections Commission said, nope, there's a disparity there, even though this is where this candidate lived. This is how this person, was told, yeah, go ahead and fill out the paperwork this way. So there was no Green Party on the presidential ballot in 2020, and Joe Biden wins by 21,000 votes. So yeah, there's an awful lot of anxiety here in Wisconsin, and there is a built-in base for the Green Party in places like Madison and other university towns. Even if we weren't talking about opposition to Israel, support for the Palestinians, there is a sense that Joe Biden maybe isn't going as far as some younger, environmentally focused people want him to. He still can buy a gas-powered car in this country, can still buy a gas-powered stove. We still have nuclear power plants and coal-fired power plants, and they want Joe Biden to embrace the full green energy plan now, not later, now. And you add then the anger on college campuses, and that's where the anger over the war against Hamas is. A college campus in a place like Madison, where there are 40, 50,000 students, 5% of that, plus whatever a number of Democrats just choose to not vote for Joe Biden out of protest. And yeah, I know Jill Stein says she does not want to be a spoiler, but she very much could end up being the spoiler here in Wisconsin.
Well, and it's not just in Wisconsin. There were similar issues, not Green Party related, but Israel-Hamas war related. If I recall right, in Michigan, where some people who generally vote Democrat just didn't vote in the primary. Obviously, that doesn't make a difference in the primary. But if that happens in November, if those people don't vote in Michigan, or Green Party people don't vote or switch, there is a lot of issues that the Democrats could be facing over the next several months. It's almost like Democrats are going to be having to fight wars on many different fronts.
There were 100,000 people who voted uncommitted in the Michigan Democratic primary. That means they're still Democrats, but they didn't vote for Joe Biden. Dearborn, Michigan has the largest Arab American population in the entire country. You're right. 100,000 people is not going to cost Joe Biden Michigan. He won by more votes than that. But you add that to the old UAW union car maker vote that Michigan is famous for. And those folks aren't happy that this president is trying to rush everybody to electric cars that Detroit doesn't make, that people aren't buying. And he's got problems there. There was just a story out of Chicago earlier this week, maybe late last week, of Arab American leaders there, where there is a very large Palestinian American community. They've refused to meet with the White House as long as there is a war against Hamas. They want a ceasefire, and they want it now. The Democrats are coming to Chicago this summer for the Democratic National Convention. And I think anyone who's old enough to remembers the last time that there was an unpopular war among Democrats with young, angry people who have no problem taking to the streets when they gathered together on hot Chicago nights in Grant Park. I don't know that Joe Biden wants to be nominated against the backdrop of helmeted Chicago police busting the heads of young people a la 1968. But yeah, this is a growing problem, and it's not going to go away for Democrats. And the Biden administration seems stuck as more and more Democrats at the local level, more and more Democrats at the state level start to demand that something be done about a war that Joe Biden can't stop and can't really control.
Yeah, it seems to me that you're starting to see splits in the Democratic Party similar to the ones that you've seen in the Republican Party over the last few years, really hardcore social conservatives and fiscal conservatives, and these little factions that gain some momentum. All of a sudden, you can't build a consensus on anything, and it becomes a serious issue to win elections.
The Democratic Party has used a split vote. It's always been a coalition. It's long been a coalition of these groups and these groups and these groups and these groups. Well, the problem is that the different identity groups that Democrats have been counting on all of the years are no longer walking lockstep. They're feeling themselves. They're testing their power. They understand just what a couple of well-timed protests, what the impression on Twitter, what TikTok means to them. And this is a vastly different campaign than we had in 2016 and in 2020, even though the candidates are the same. It is a vastly different campaign this time than it was 4 years ago. And look, we could talk real clear average polls. We could talk right direction, wrong direction. We could go off down the rabbit hole for the predictions for 2024. But I know this in Wisconsin, if Jill Stein and the Green Party really do get 5% of the vote here, they're not going to be taking any of those votes from people who would be voting from Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And if you're trying to keep these groups and these groups and these groups happy, you better keep these groups and these groups and these groups happy. Ben, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Like to stay informed on the go? Audible has an ever-growing selection of audiobooks at your fingertips. Whether it's that classic you've been meaning to get to or the new release you've been waiting for, follow the link in our show description to get 30 days of Audible free.